And now, a thought from Mann. Today's subject, political correctness. You know, we're starting to have more of a problem with being politically correct. I mean, I get it. It's just, we're trying a little too hard to be sensitive to what others feel and think, you know? I know there are always certain terms you shouldn't say to describe a certain thing, you know? But when we use that excuse for everything, it just kind of takes away our freedom of speech. And that's a right. You have the right to say what you want, as long as it's not threatening someone's life. It's basically gotten to the point that you can't call someone who's disabled handicapped. And it's like, really? And also, sometimes they'll say you can't call a senior citizen. Or an old person, anyway. It just shows we've gone a little too far with trying to be sensitive to what others feel and think. Hell, it's even gotten to the point that we get offended by something that didn't even offend the person it was supposed to offend. At one point, they banned Speedy Gonzalez because some people thought he was racially insensitive. And guess who really wasn't even offended by him? Actual Mexicans. They thought he was perfectly fine, and it's understandable why he's fine, because all he is a little mouse that wears a sombrero, has an accent, and just says he's the fastest mouse in all of Mexico. There's nothing wrong with that. They never showed him eating a taco or burrito or doing anything that most people think a Mexican does. The most he'd always eat is cheese, and he is a mouse. Thankfully, they brought him back, and it's good. There's nothing wrong with him anymore. There never was to begin with, but I digress. We just need to start realizing if it doesn't offend the person it's supposed to offend, then you shouldn't get offended neither. You know, I understand you want to be a social justice warrior and whatnot, but if it doesn't offend anyone, leave it alone. I can understand getting mad when someone says the word nigger to a black person or calls a Chinese person a chink or a immigrant a wetback or something like that. That's perfectly understandable. But if no one's saying stuff like that, then leave it alone. Now, there's some people who will say we're being too politically correct and we're just not letting freedom of speech reign. But the thing is, that person who's saying that is just an asshole who's saying something that's just downright incorrect. Donald Trump, for instance, he thinks we live in a political correct society. We're too politically correct. And it is true, but the thing is, it's not that what he's saying is politically incorrect. It's just, it's incorrect.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell. I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness.
Are you aware that the term anchor baby, that's an offensive term? People find that...
You mean it's not politically correct, and yet everybody uses it? So you know what? Give me a different term. Give me a different term. What else would you like to say?
The American-born child with an undocumented immigrant.
Oh, you want me to say that? Okay. No, I'll use the word anchor baby.
Now, what he's saying is actually politically incorrect, but at the same time, he's just downright incorrect. And that's a time when it's like, yeah, you should speak up. You should call him out on his bullshit. Because he's spreading misinformation. And we shouldn't allow misinformation to be spread. That's how a lot of conflict can come about. Donald Trump's main problem is that when he's calling someone a certain name, like when he called Rosie O'Donnell a fat slob or a pig, or called women slobs or pigs, he's not trying to open a dialogue. He's just trying to hurt someone. And he's not trying to get people to think. He's just trying to gain an edge over everyone else. And that's not how you should do it. If you're trying to get people to think about a certain subject matter, you don't need to put something down. You know, talk about it. get people to actually think about it. Don't just call it an insult and say, oh, you're just being politically correct. I mean, people need to recognize there are times when you do need to be politically correct. If someone is saying something that is truly hurtful to someone and that person is offended by it, okay, back them up on it. If someone calls a black person a nigger and that black person is pissed off about it, join up with them, Show that racial intolerance is just not going to hold. But if someone's saying something that's just a little insensitive, but the person that's supposed to be offended doesn't even get offended by it, hell, they might even laugh at it, that says leave it alone. It's not something you should have to worry yourself about. And if someone tries to respond to you correcting them and they just say, you're trying to be politically correct, you're just being too PC, tell them, no, I'm not being politically correct, I'm just being correct. What you're saying is a lie and spreading misinformation about something. Don't be afraid to call out bullshit when you hear bullshit. There's a big difference between being politically incorrect and just being downright incorrect. And you should stand up against incorrectness. And that's the way things should be. But that's just a thought.